Afternoon. I hope you hear me well. On behalf of the European Commission's DG Reform and the European Investment Bank, welcome to this panel on building resilience for EU member states, supporting EU member states, address climate adaptation and civil protection. The consequences of climate crisis are visible to all, and they are also impacting member states across the EU. Action is being taken across the EU from a policy angle, from the private sector angle, from an EU funding angle, and we have here with us today distinguished guests who will provide their feedback from all these angles. Given that this panel will be shorter than expected, only 20 minutes because there were some delays, we will have one round of interventions and from all our speakers, and without any delay, I will introduce them. We have the pleasure to have with us the Minister of Climate Crisis and Civil Protection of Greece, Mr. Kikilias, the Minister of Interior of Cyprus, Mr. Ioannou, who is also responsible for civil protection, the Vice President of the European Investment Bank, Mr. Kakouris, the Director General of the Directorate General for Structural Reform Support of the European Commission, Mr. Nava, the Deputy Director General of the Directorate General for the Environment of the European Commission, Mr. Child, the Executive Vice President, Europe Operations of Schneider Electric, Mrs. Avisoué, and the CEO and Vice Chairman of the Board of Directors of ERGO Insurance. Minister Kikilias, we start with you. Greece attempts to dynamically address the issue of climate crisis through the creation of a ministry which covers both climate crisis and civil protection. What are the challenges that you, as head of this ministry, are trying to address?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. We have to be resilient and we have to be able to adjust. So there was a power failure earlier, so also Delphi Forum has to adjust. We shouldn't let our friends who are in the panel be late. That's why we cut it in half. So let's speak like Spartans, which means less is more. So yes, we're in the middle of a crisis. It influences, of course, mainly the framework of being able to protect humans and civilians, their houses, and of course, what has to do with ecology. But also, it influences economy. If you see the Daniel storm pass through Greece and Thessaly and cause damages between 2.5 to 3 billion to 8 billion euros. So prevention is a key essence for us, which means new legislation, being able to adapt children that go to school, universities, new technologies, all in a cooperation in order to be able to mitigate, but also try to see infrastructures and what you do with them. So I was blessed to be involved in every crisis that Greece dealt in the last 6 years. A global crisis of public health, a pandemic, and then a war in the heart of Europe that caused zero bookings in the term of tourism, and now last year mega fires and huge floods. I was blessed because it's a blessing to be able to, yes, it's a big burden, but it's a blessing to be able to sleep at night or don't sleep at night and try to give it everything you have to be able to save even one human life. So I think that now this milestone for us is a milestone of trying to convince each other, member states, the European Union, DG Reform, the European Investment Bank, and national governments to invest on this nowadays. I hear about renewable energy, I hear about green economy, I hear about beautiful investments, plans, and big words that have to do with maybe 2 or 3 decades in advance. The problems we face today. I want to remind everybody that we weren't able to procure in the pandemic. And there was a global war of means of private personal protection, of respirators between Northern Europe and Eastern Europe. And if the pandemic didn't have a curb down in China, it would be that would have had a devastating effect in the rest of the world. So globalization is nice, And planning in advance is nice, but we're way behind the European Union in member states and in what is decided in terms of working together now for the problem that is here, clear and present. What have we done, like Greece, for that? Prime Minister Mitsotakis gave us the opportunity to transform a General Secretary into a ministry and gave us 2.1 billion euro between the European Investment Bank, ESPA and RRA, in order to be able to invest in Canadair, helicopters, amphibious helicopters, drones, radars, meteorology stations, artificial intelligence, digitalization, 1,100 fire brigade trucks, etc., blah, blah, blah. In order to do what? Can you make the crisis disappear? No. What can you do? You can prevent, and you can help diminish the circumstances and the results, the unfortunate results of this crisis, and then keep on building on in infrastructures and common policies. This is unfortunately our destiny for the next decades, to face consequences crises one after the other in the European Union. And we're not a big country, we're 2% of Europe's GDP, but we're trying to be pioneers. We did it through the pandemic. We're trying to do it now through the climate crisis. It cannot happen only with 16,000 fire brigade men or just some volunteers. It's a national effort. It's way beyond the Euro elections, way beyond political parties and micro-politics. Just please stay out of that and leave us alone. It has nothing to do with the 9th of June. It has to do with people trying to survive. We paid a hard price last year. Had a huge pressure. We're going to have a difficult summer this year, and we're getting prepared for that.
Thank you. The Republic of Cyprus Minister Ioannou is also trying to face climate crisis, including through an investment in civil protection. And you're the responsible minister. We would like to ask you to elaborate on Cyprus's efforts.
First of all, thank you, and allow me to thank the organizers for inviting me to this event and be in the presence of such esteemed professionals. I would like, first of all, to thank Mario for the assistance of what I'm going to talk about, but also I would like to congratulate Vasilis for the remarkable work he's doing at the ministry now. I've known Vasilis since we both served as Minister of Health during COVID, and I have to absolutely agree with him that it seems that one crisis after another is following us in our post, but anyway. First of all, as member states, we have to realize that climate change is here to stay, and we have to adapt to the new realities. We have to face it in a holistic approach, and unfortunately in Cyprus, when we took over as a new administration 13 months ago, and we were reviewing our whole civil protection system, in Cyprus, there are different departments, different legislations, different jurisdictions dealing with each and every different either human-made or nature crisis. For example, if there is a fire in the mountains, it's the fire brigade, it's the Ministry of Agriculture, it's a district office, it's a civil protection. So this creates a whole host of problems in terms of gaps, overlapping, coordination, and it's not the ideal scenario. So we realize that a restructuring of the civil service system needs to be taken place. So we applied to DG Reform under TSI, and fortunately our proposal was approved. What it calls upon, the proposal, is basically a new civil protection system to modernize our current civil defense department, as we call it. It will be a civil protection directorate, a contemporary civil protection directorate. But the assistance we are getting, which is basically what we actually need, is, first of all, we're going to do an assessment of the current gaps, there are gaps, and analyze the risks involved in order to have a roadmap of what needs to be done to create this new department. It's quite an ambitious project. Foremost and the most important is the draft legislation to coordinate all instead of having different legislations. So a new legislation will be drafted. Also, we're going to have interagency cooperation protocols, because right now we have different departments that have to cooperate. So we need to form protocols on how to best coordinate, talk to each other in terms of an emergency, be it governmental, non-governmental, or semi-governmental organizations. We have to also we're going to create a standardized risk assessment methodology and specific risk assessment reports for specific hazards, for specific risks. This is what most important. It has to do with prevention, like Vasilis mentioned before. Prevention, I think, is of paramount importance. It's the cornerstone of any civil protection system, and actually prevention it's cost effective. We strongly believe that we have to spend in prevention, and the more you spend, it's an investment. If you spend it, it's like health, the previous panel. Well, if you spend in prevention in health, you sell a lot of money from your national health system, from illness that will be able to identify way in advance and not needing surgery and so on. The same principle applies for public, such systems, civil protection systems. So we're going to do risk assessment reports, taking into account geographical factors, demographics, infrastructure, in order to come up with specific reports, identify what we need to do to improve. Of equal importance is educating the public and involving the communities. And this also has to do with prevention. So we're going to get assistance in designing communication plans. These plans have to be on an ongoing basis, on a yearly round basis, and also more specific. And we're also, last but not least, going to reevaluate our emergency response plans, which we haven't done for many years. And I firmly believe that the experience we get on a yearly basis by dealing with natural or man-made disasters, we have to reevaluate our emergency plans every year and see what went wrong and try to improve them. Early warning system, it's of paramount importance as well. Right before this panel, we signed an agreement, and I'd like to thank in public the minister. Greece is going to assist us in implementing an early warning system, the 112 early warning system. For you that live in Greece know the importance, have experienced the importance last year with the fires in Rhodes. In Cyprus, our system is outdated. We're getting funding from TSI to do the infrastructure, which is equally important. It's what we talked with the ministry before, but we're also going to get the know-how and the expertise from Greece on how to implement the early warning system. So in a nutshell, we're going to modernize our national system, make it more modern, and be able to adapt to the current needs based on the key challenges of climate change.
Thank you, Minister. You have presented, both of you, the efforts of member states to tackle climate adaptation, using civil protection, updating civil protection. Before we go to the type of support that you refer to, that the Commission makes available, Deputy Director General Child, we'd like to hear what is the policy of the European Commission on this, in this area.
Well, thank you very much, and delighted to be here. And I think it's a great moment to be discussing this topic, because not only are we all confronted with the challenges that we've heard the ministers describing so eloquently, but we also have a very solid and very recent policy framework adopted by the European Commission, firstly in the EU Climate Risk Assessment Report, which was presented just a few weeks ago, and alongside that, the midterm review of our 8th Environmental Action Plan. And this confirms, I think, the sort of international analysis that a really major part of our economy is directly dependent on nature, and therefore the risks that are confronting nature pose a very significant threat to our economies and to our societies. But the good news is that, and these comes also out of our report, is that although a lot more needs to be done, we do have the potential to address these challenges effectively. And we've already taken quite a lot of action, whether that's through the national climate adaptation plans that all member states have under our existing framework, or indeed more specifically protecting nature through the EU's biodiversity strategy for 2030, where we really try to make the case for nature-based solutions and to create also the economic imperative and the commercial case for acting through nature through new ideas such as biodiversity credits. We have, of course, in the European Green Deal adopted a certain number of important legal proposals. We have the nature restoration law, which we hope is on the brink of adoption by member states and the European Parliament. And we also have proposals on forest monitoring and on soil health to make sure that nature is really managed in the most sustainable and resilient fashion. Looking to the future, and I think there are some real big challenges ahead for the next Commission. Already President von der Leyen has announced water resilience as a key challenge. I mean, our existing policy legal framework addresses water essentially in terms of its quality to make sure that we have clean water to drink, clean water in our rivers and lakes, and a healthy marine environment. But increasingly we now need to look at also the supply of water to make sure that we have the water that we need where we need it. We have measures to address excess of water, flooding, but we also have equitable and sustainable solutions to make sure that water is available to maintain agricultural and economic activity. So I think that's an important dimension which we will work on a lot in the next Commission. The other thing that's coming up, and I know we're short of time, but I just want to finish with that, is the opportunity that we have with the proposals that the Commission will present in 2025 for the next multi-annual financial framework. And there I think there are three dimensions that are going to be important. Firstly, we need to become more effective in mainstreaming the work we do on what I will call the green transition in all of our EU-funded programs, including the ones where that is perhaps most difficult at the moment in the Common Agricultural Policy. Secondly, we need to build on what we've already achieved through the principle of do no significant harm and the EU taxonomy for sustainable investment to make sure that we have, as a sort of red line running through all the money that is being spent by the European Union, the clear focus on resilience and sustainability. And thirdly and finally, I think we need to build much more strongly the links between the way we spend EU money and the efforts that member states are making in order to address the environmental challenges that we have and to comply with EU legislation. And there I think that instruments like the TSI, where we bring specific and targeted support, as we do also in the LIFE program, which is the specific dedicated environment program managed by DG Environment and DG Klima, really to support financially the work that countries are doing to help them build up the administrative capacity that's required, and therefore to work together towards these common objectives that we have on climate adaptation, resilience, and civil protection. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and I think you've made already the link to the next speaker, because you presented EU policy and you have suggested that the Commission also helps member states implement it. So, Director General Nava, how do we do that?
Thank you very much. Actually, this area is the perfect area for technical support, because it said technical support works if there is political will. All governments have a political will to make climate prevention, climate disaster prevention, and to be able to avoid that. So it's the perfect area where we have to start with. We have done a number of initiatives in this area. I think the two examples are here. What I think is important to do is to be very, in a way, granular in what we do. So basically, in any of the example, it always starts from prevention. And I think Minister Kikilias said it very clearly. The prevention is essential. What is the prevention? Cleaning the forest, for example, during the month of March and April. From prevention, you move to preparedness. Preparedness is, for example, having a road to enter. I'm keeping the example of the forest, but having a road to enter if at some point you need to put in the machine that puts off the fires, and having the machine not so distant so that they can go and put in the fires. Then there are all the mitigation measures. What are the measures that we can do to make mitigation of the risk of the forest? And then I think there are two very important points that were touched a little bit. One is the cooperation. And I think Minister Kikilias and Minister Ioannou gave exact example of what I wanted to say. Cooperation is not only intra-government, that's what Minister Ioannou referred, that's extremely important, the cooperation intra-government. There is also cooperation outside governments. I'm sure Kyriacos will tell us in a moment on that, because the EIB has played a very important role there. So when we look at cooperation, there are a number of actors in this area. Already you see here two Director Generals of the Commission were both into that. So I think the cooperation in order to reach a result is crucial at every level, within a government and between a government and the external. And then the other point, and everybody who spoke before me referred to that, I think this is really crucial, is considering climate change in decision making. That's what in Brussels, in our jargon, we call the double materiality. Is not only what we as people do to the climate, but what the climate does to us. We need to consider that in the decision making, for example, of business. I'm sure the private sector will recall it to us later on. So in the business, in the economic case, it was mentioned, when you want to do the economic case, you need to consider what climate change will do to the economic change. And then the very last thing, mainstreaming climate strategies into many things, into education, into communication, into running a region, the countries. I think this is really the things that we are there to do. Patrick said it very clearly. The Commission, as you know, will propose for the MFF in mid-2025. Then will be the Council and the Parliament to adopt, but it would really be great if many of those principles would be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nava. Mr. Kakouris, Vice President of the European Investment Bank. Funds are always an important part of the equation. So we pass the floor to you for that.
Thank you very much, Gianni. Thank you very much for the organizers for the invitation. And as the European Investment Bank, as the EU Climate Bank, and one of the largest contributors of green finance worldwide, we do feel that we have been investing in adaptation for over 10 years. But we have the ambition to do more. I mean, definitely we do cooperate with the Commission and with governments in order to fight climate action. Actually, our financing in climate action last year, it was 60% of our lending, which was the volume. It was 88 billion, and out of that. We have a target that by 2025 to reach 15% of adaptation of that. And our climate adaptation plan, we launched it in 21. It focuses mainly in 3 areas to support smarter, faster, and more systematic adaptation, to be on a global scale, both inside and outside the EU, and accelerate international action on adaptation and resilience. Usually we finance 50% of green projects. With the adaptation plan, we can go 75% for projects that are focusing on adaptation or just primarily start with adaptation. And we can even go up to 100% for projects in vulnerable states, small island states, or even regions in less developed countries. we can do this through our regular products, investment loans, framework loans, intermediate loans, and managed mandates either from the Commission of the national authorities. And for projects focusing mainly on water scarcity and facing the risk of flooding, and also to financing the urban and territorial development in their efforts to fight in their adaptation efforts. Also, we have to say at the EIB, we say that it's not just lending. For us, it's lending, advising, and blending. And also in adaptation, we created ADAPT. I mean, I have to say that at the EIB, we have hundreds, if not thousands, acronyms. ADAPT is an adaptation platform, and with that, I mean, we try to advise anybody who's asking us how to formulate a strategic plan for adaptation, to help in project preparation and implementation, and also capacity building. I don't know how long I spoke, I didn't know, but you can, at our website, eib.org, I mean, definitely you can see the whole climate adaptation plan of the EIB, and you can also, I mean, send us email and provide any information you like, honestly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kakouris. We have a few minutes left, but of course we wouldn't interrupt you since we condensed everything. But in the few minutes we have, and hopefully we can have a few more, we would like to hear from the private sector how you can support the efforts of the member states. And we have Ms. Avis Ue from Schneider Electric.
Yes, well, thank you very much. I would like to share a little bit about private sector because we've heard a lot about the member states and also about public institutions. But at the end of the day, it's a collective effort. If we want to make a difference, it's really a collective effort. What I mean is that the private sector not only needs to decarbonize its own journey, but needs to prevent and adapt, to all the climate risk and resource disruption. That's absolutely critical. And to do that, we have numbers of tools. The first tool is that there is a directive at the European level that is called Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. For the first time, all the companies in Europe will have to assess climate risk for the first time ever. Is it easy? It's not easy, not at all. Not only big companies will have to do it, and we can do that. We have risk assessment, preventive measures, actions, etc. We can do that, and we are already doing that. But it's all the supply chain, because here we're talking about the resiliency of the supply chain. When we talk to our customers, do they know how to decarbonize, how to measure their footprint, how to mitigate climate impacts? Most of them are small companies. They don't have tools. They don't have the capabilities. And that's why we need to help them. My message here is that private sector, they have to do their own share in that, but they have also to work across the value chain with suppliers, with customers across the value chain, because this is the only way to build resiliency. And the second topic I would like to highlight is our role in innovation, in technology. Yes, we have technologies today that we can deploy to make it more resilient, and that should be the case in Europe. For example, we are deploying for the grid. We are talking about lots of wind power right now. That is a bit of challenge. Well, we have developed some technologies to help reduce the power outages. This is something that needs to be deployed. But not only that, we need to invent the technologies of the future. That will build a much more resilient future. So I have to say that it's really embarking across the value chain, helping the smaller ones that don't have the capabilities to have this level of commitment, and at the same time investing ourselves on innovation and technology that will spread out, and especially Europe needs to take a stance on that and to be on the forefront.
Thank you very much. Maybe one closing statement from you, sorry, from ERCO Insurance. We're out of time, but you have the last word.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, just to say that, of course, I fully agree that has to be a result of collaborative effort in order to fight against the climate crisis. it's clear that the insurance industry has a role to play there, because our business is to really work around risk assessment, and we can work both on the prevention but also on the relief whenever the damage occurs. And the climate crisis is there. No? We just to give you a number, in the last 20 years, the insurance sector in Greece paid 1 billion euros claims related with natural disaster, and 45% of that amount was related to last year's events. So it's clear that the frequency is increasing and the intensity of these events is increasing. I'm very proud about what Ergo, my company, but also the entire industry managed this crisis, showing speed and flexibility in order to provide relief to our clients. Even without assessing fully the damage, we were able to provide advance payments. So we really believe that we can help as a sector, and we need to work more on the prevention. So our role, we need to strengthen our role, our advisory role to our clients, both individuals or business, in order to help them to take measures in order to prevent the risk of flood or fire, etc., etc. So this is a long-term project, and it will need the help of institutions, government, etc. It's very good to hear that the government is also supporting these initiatives with incentives. It's just a small start, so we already have a small incentive on property tax for those properties that are insured. There is now an open debate about insuring companies, businesses with a turnover above 2 million euros. And of course, this debate will continue because insurance in Greece is really very low. Insurance penetration is very low. So we are at 2.5% of GDP, when in other countries we are above 8%. So it's really, there is a clear under-penetration of private insurance, a huge insurance gap, and we need to work all together to increase that.
Thank you very much. And with that message of working together, we thank everyone for the interesting perspectives. Apologies for the short time. Thank you.